We're going to start recording. Now go ahead and kick it off.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Nigel Rasmussen. I serve as your training chair for the Department of Utah. And tonight we have the pleasure of hearing from our department judge advocate, Barb Beck. And she has actually a wealth of experience being a judge advocate for this department. So I'm really glad Barb's on here tonight to share with you information about post and district bylaws, constitution and bylaws. And if you are not muted, please mute so we don't have any background noise,
Thank you. I was just going to say that.
please. And Barb has, I know, well, at least during my commander year, has worked extensively with posts and districts around the state to help them understand what they need to know about post and district bylaw, constitution and bylaws. And as you well know, or if you don't know, just this year we went and passed in the DEC last June our department constitution and bylaws, which Barb was also a part of with her committee and crew. And so that's a cumbersome, long process, but we'd like to streamline it so that everybody's hopefully in compliance across the state with their constitution and bylaws and the processes of how to amend them, etc. So I am going to turn over the time to Barb, and Barb, it's on you, ma'am.
When you say cumbersome, you just don't even know. It started in 2019 and went all the way to 2025. It took us a long time to get it all
Yes.
together and get everybody bought into it and agreeing to it, and
Yeah.
hopefully put out a document that's pretty good for our department.
Yeah.
I think all of you have the handout that our adjutant sent about the Constitution and bylaws, and we're pretty much going to follow that. And as I go through it, if you want to hold your questions to the end, that would probably help us get through it and give us more time to get to the questions. But if you just can't wait, then jump in and ask, and I'll try to answer your questions as we go along. Before I start on the document, I think Rick sent also a document entitled Chartering and
Yeah, I'm
Incorporating
working
of
on getting
Districts.
that up here. I made a little boo-boo when I was first getting this started. So I'm going to go ahead and show or share my screen, and then we'll be able to get started there. So hang on here 1 second. Share screen. I'm going to share this one.
Is there,
Okay.
hey, Rick, before you move from here, will you make sure everybody's muted?
Yeah. If you're not muted now, please mute yourself so that I'm going to have to hang on here. Okay. Let's see. I'm not gonna mute Barb. That would be bad. I think we've got everybody muted now. Yep, it
Okay.
looks like they are. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, before I
So
get
now I've got to go here and share my screen again and select that presentation and say share away. And then we're going to, okay,
okay,
and we are away.
I know this is billed as something for post and districts, but what I'm going to focus on now and the rest of the evening until I finish the presentation is posts. And I'll tell you why when we get to the end, but just shortly to tell you that in my opinion and the opinion of the National Judge Advocate, there's absolutely no reason. In fact, it could be detrimental for districts to be chartered. And I know that we have several districts are incorporated. And I know that we have several districts around the state that are incorporated, including the district I'm in, District 2. So I know that they exist. And certainly if it's not illegal, there's nothing in Utah law that would prevent it from occurring, or nothing in national law that would prevent it from occurring, but it's something that could be very detrimental. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So if you're under the Constitution and bylaws, first question that's on the document that you have in front of you is, what's the difference And do you have to have one document or two? Well, there is a difference between your constitution and your bylaws. And let me just tell you, if you decide that you are going to incorporate your post, rather than a constitution, you want to have articles of incorporation, because that's what the state of Utah demands. They don't. You can have articles of incorporation, constitution, bylaws. All of those things can be your governing documents. But if you're going to incorporate, you've got to have your articles of incorporation. Whether you incorporate or not, if you're going to formally organize your post, then you certainly need a constitution and bylaws. And there is a difference. I like to say that the Constitution is sort of who you are. What do you do? Where do you come from, and who you are? And the who you are is whatever your post is. Your post X, the American Legion. If you have a name, our post is Baker Merrill Post 9 of the American Legion. So it talks about who you are, and it also talks about what you do. And what you do as a post is set forth in our preamble. Our preamble says, for God and country, we associate ourselves together for the following purpose. So when you do your constitution and you get to that section that says your purpose, you can just fill in the preamble, because that is what we do. And the other thing that's part of the Constitution is, why do you do it? Why do you do it? Well, we do it because we want to serve our veterans. We want to serve our veterans and our communities. So to me, the Constitution is the who, the what, and the why. And it covers the very fundamental principles. I know the document says it doesn't cover specific procedures for operating your postal district, and that's true in a way. But everything that you put into the Constitution is a guideline. It is a guideline for those three things: who you are, what do you do, and why do you do it. The bylaws, I like to say, is the how. When you start your bylaws, you've already told us who, what, and why. And now you got to tell how. How are you going to do this? If you, for God and country, we associate ourselves together for the following purposes, how are you going to do that? Well, you're gonna form a post. You're going to have rules. You're going to have rules that relate to your post operations. You're going to tell us, how am I going to do this? And you're not only going to tell us, but you're going to tell your post members, how am I going to do these things? So as the document here says, they're the go-to source for how your post operates. How are you gonna appoint your officers? You're gonna appoint, you're gonna elect, some appointed, some elected. How are you gonna do this? How are you gonna run this organization? So that's where your structure comes from. It's the bylaws. They define the post operating rules. They define the duties of your membership. They define the duties of your officers. So I like to say that the bylaws is the how. So you get a constitution, you get a bylaws. Is that the end of it? Does that okay, I've got this now, I can go home and sit down and have a beer and watch TV. Does it trump everything else? Does it overrule everything else that's going on in your post? Well, not exactly. There's a hierarchy, if you will, and it's just a hierarchy in the law, period. And there's a hierarchy in the rules that have to be followed. So your Constitution and bylaws is somewhere in that hierarchy, in that stack, but it's certainly not the first. You cannot write rules. You can't say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, if it violates a state or federal law. So somewhere in your document, you even have language that specifically says, or basically says, okay, I'm writing all these rules, but if they conflict, with state or federal law, or in fact, if they conflict with our national and department constitution and bylaws, they prevail. They're higher up in the hierarchy than your post constitution and bylaws. So you have the state and federal laws, you have the department and national constitution bylaws that trump your constitution and bylaws. You even have your articles of incorporation, because the articles of incorporation are the documents that actually get filed with the state of Utah. So the state of Utah is going to go, when they're looking at what you're doing and how you're doing it, they're going to look at what you put forth in your articles of incorporation. And if your constitution and bylaws have language that somehow conflicts with your articles of incorporation, those articles of incorporation, because they're the ones that are accepted by the state of Utah as law, they're going to trump your constitution and bylaws. Okay, now we get to where you are, your post-constitution and bylaws. In the stack of hierarchy, you're number 4. You're under the statutes, you're under the Department of National Constitution, and you're under your own articles of incorporation. So now you've got your post-constitution and bylaws. After that, you've got other things that you have to look at, and even though your post-constitution and bylaws will overrule these other 3 things, you still have to pay attention to them. You still have to give them consideration. The parliamentary authority, if you say that you're going to be bound by Robert's rules in your meetings, and you don't do that, you just sort of let your meetings run amok. You let anybody do what they want to do. You don't entertain motions, or if you do, you don't ask for seconds. And I got to tell you something about parliamentary authority. And if you ever read well, I can't think of what it's called, the book that we get that from the national, that tells us how to do things, how to run a meeting, when you get to the section in there that talks about parliamentary procedure, it specifically says, don't let parliamentary procedure stop you from being able to get things accomplished. Because most of us, quite frankly, we don't know anything about parliamentary procedure. We don't know when a motion can be made on some issue, or when it has to be withdrawn, or if somebody tries to make another motion and one motion is on the floor. Most of us don't know that stuff. All we're trying to do at our meetings is make sure that we can handle the business of our post and do it in a way that everybody gets heard, everybody gets a chance to say, but at the end, we accomplish the mission that we have. So even though parliamentary authority is very important in our hierarchy, just be careful that you don't let it stop your organization. Don't turn people off because they don't know how to do this. Don't turn them off. Don't push them away because maybe they didn't do something exactly right. It's there, it's important, but don't let it ruin your post. Bylaws. The next thing on the list is the standing rules. We have standing rules in our department constitution. Most posts don't. Most posts, we're lucky in the post if we get constitution and bylaws, and if they incorporate, we get the articles of incorporation. But standing rules is a good place to throw stuff, because you can change. It takes 2/3 vote of your membership to change your bylaws and constitution. But in your standing rules, they can be changed just by your PEC. So a lot of the things that you want to do with your post, a lot of things, and especially if you have a bar, or if you have a post and you might lease it out, you might rent it out, something that you're making money on. Standing rules are very important, because even though they're far down on the hierarchy, they control those things for sure. So if you have a bar and you're allowing people to come in that should not be coming in. You're not abiding by you're not abiding by the tax code, much less the department and your constitution and bylaws. You can better control that. You can create committees that are specifically, their purpose specifically is to audit that bar, to make sure that the bar is behaving in the way it's supposed to, so that your post doesn't get in trouble. Your post doesn't lose its charter. Your post doesn't lose its tax status because of things that your bar is doing. And you can put all that in your standing rules. And if you have to tighten it up, if you have to make changes, you can do that in your standing rules, and you can do that with your PUC. And the last thing in the hierarchy is customs. And sometimes I think, quite frankly, this is number one. How many times have you had people in the post say to you when you're trying to do something, well, that's just not how we've always done it? Well, okay, that's just not how we've always done it. That's a good thing to know. It's a good thing to talk to the people that have been there a long time and say, okay, you have ideas about this? You have ideas about how we should do this? But you can't run your bar, your post, because somebody says that's how we always did it. So customs is pretty far down the list, even though it's there and it's important. It's and you know, we've got a lady in our post. She's auxiliary, and you all know her, and she's wonderful. But she will tell us real quick when we start to try to do something. Well, we've never done that before. Well, we don't, you can't do it that way. That's not how we do it. And we very gently talk and maneuver around so that we can get what we need to get done without losing her. But a lot of people, I mean, that's not an uncommon thing to come up in discussions and in your meetings when you're trying to get something done. Somebody's going to say, well, that's just not how we've done it before. Well, if you want to, if it's not how you've done it before, and you want to do it that way now, and that's in conflict with your constitution and bylaws, then change your constitution and bylaws. But you can't just say, well, I'm going to ignore my constitution and bylaws and go by custom. Okay. When you start to write your constitution and bylaws, don't get so specific. I tell people all the time, our government is known for this, and I think they do it intentionally. When they write a piece of legislation, it is so vague. It has so many ways that you can interpret it. Of course, that keeps the courts busy. You know, we stay busy all the time. When I was on the bench in California, I was on the legislative committee for the state judges association, and we used to meet with our legislatures a couple of times a year. And I cannot tell you how many times the legislatures would say to us, well, we know you can't really understand it, but you know what? We know the court's going to figure it out, and you'll work it out, and you'll make it all right. Well, that's not good. So when I say to you here, don't make it too specific, I don't mean to try to make it so vague that nobody understands what it is they're exactly supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it. So I guess because of my experience there, I'm much more likely to do a few more details than maybe other people might be. And I know that at the bottom it says avoid specific days and dates in your bylaws. Well, yeah, you can do that. You can say our meetings will be held once a month. You can say we're not going to meet certain months. But you can also say our meetings are going to be held on the third Tuesday of every month, except the months of June and December when there will not be a meeting. And if for some reason you have to change, and then if you have to change that date, as long as you have put in your bylaws that if those dates change for any reason, the members will be given 30 days notice of the change. And if you do that, then you've got your date set out so that anybody who looks at that knows exactly when you're going to be at the post for your meeting and what months that you're not. So as long as you put language in there that gives you that gives you the chance to change those dates with notice to your members, then I would put the specific dates and days and dates in there. That's just me. That's just me personal. Now, one of the reasons that this page is in here, don't be too specific, is because it's really hard to change your constitution and bylaws once they're written. First of all, it's hard to get them adopted in the first place. There's a lot of notice that has to go in to all of your members, and everybody has a chance to respond to it, make comments, make suggestions, whatever, until you eventually and finally get to a document that you believe you can submit to membership and get it passed. But in order to amend, once you get it passed, in order to amend it, it's going to take 2/3 majority vote. That's the law. 2/3 majority vote of your membership, not just your PEC, of your membership, to change your constitution and bylaws. So that's one reason why there's often a recommendation to not make it so specific. Make it so that if you need to be a little flexible about meeting minutes, if you need to be a little flexible about when committees are filled, or when the election is, or just be mindful that it takes 2/3 vote to change your constitution and bylaws. Okay, you've decided you want to do constitution and bylaws. Where do you start? Luckily, our Department of Utah is going to be putting a template on the webpage to assist in writing your constitution and bylaws. Over the last, as Neinzel said, over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, I can't tell you how many versions of constitution and bylaws that I have sent out to posts that have requested, districts that have requested, and I'm happy to do that. I don't know, I must have 6 or 7 in my documents on my computer, and so I send them out. But if we will come up, we will come up with a template that gives you something to go on to write your own constitution and bylaws. Ultimately, you've got to write your constitution and bylaws to fit your post, to fit what you have. I mean, we have a post that's got 400 and something members. You may have a post that's got 50 members. You may have a post that's got a lot of members, but only a handful will show up to a meeting. That's just not unusual. You may have a post that does not want to have a post meeting every month. You may have a post that wants to have a post meeting maybe once every 3 months. You may have a post home. You may not have a post home. And so it's where your meeting's going to be. So even though we put out a template, it is a template. And when you write your constitution and bylaws, you have to write those constitution and bylaws to fit your post. When they've been submitted to me for review, I've seen posts that have, as a post executive committee, everybody's elected. I mean, everybody, the commander, the first and second vice, the adjutant, the financial officer, the chaplain, the historian, everybody is elected. We don't do that in our post, but there's nothing wrong with that. If that's the way you want to run your post, and if that's what you think your members will respond to. So write your post constitution and bylaws to fit your post. If you already have bylaws and you, for some reason, are looking to change them, update them, amend them, look at your bylaws and see what it says you're supposed to have been doing, and then decide if you want to make changes, you want to leave it like it is. If you're just freshening it up and making a few changes, but look at your bylaws and see how you might want to change them to make them better, to make them more responsive to your post members, and do what's right and unique to your post. The Constitution, under the law, under Utah law, the Constitution, certain things that also have to be in the articles. And if you decide to incorporate and you have articles of incorporation, these are the same kinds of things that are required by the state of Utah to be in those documents. Remember, I said the Constitution is the who, what, and why. In your Constitution, you've got to put the American Legion preamble, because that's the who and the what, really. You have to put, for the name, you've got to give your document, that whatever the name of your post, but you also put the address for it in case there's a process of service, and God forbid if you're going to get sued and somebody's got to serve process on you, you have to put a name and a location where they can do that, where your post is located. And I'd say this not so much to posts that have their own post home, but for posts that meet in other locations, like Provo, you meet in the old courthouse, or so if you don't have your post home, you have to identify a location where service or process can be served. It's hard to put. You can't really put, when it says name, it doesn't mean the name, a person's name. It means the name of the post, because you can't obviously you can't put the commander down as the person, or the adjutant down, because they may not be there next year and you don't want to have to go in and try to change that. So just when I say name, I mean just the name and location where service or process can occur. You have to explain your membership. How's your membership made up? And be very careful about this, because in order to stay within tax law, you have to say that, where who your membership is. And it has to be veterans or active duty military. They have to have served during the time that's set forth in the Constitution, and what Congress imposed in terms of what times in our country's history that people can be members of veterans organizations. So you got to talk about membership. You got to talk about your officers, who they're going to be, how they're going to be. Are they going to be elected or appointed? How long can they serve? Can they serve more than one term? Finance, you got to explain, how your finances are set up. You have a financial officer. You're going to have a committee. How are the finances set up? How can money be spent? Can a commander spend money without going to the post executive committee, or is there some amount of money that the commander can spend without going to the post executive committee? So how are your finances going to be set up? Charter members, we don't have that. That's not in our Constitution that we have at Post 9. But if you know who your charter members are or were, I mean, we go back to 1919, but if you know who your charter members were and you want to put that in your Constitution, that's fine. That's fine. You need to talk about who the auxiliary, if you have auxiliaries, identify the auxiliaries, identify what they have to do and how they play into your post rules, your Constitution and bylaws. Most of us have an auxiliary. Most of us have sons. Some of us have American Legion riders. So if you're going to have auxiliaries, you have to say who they are. And if you have any requirements of them in terms of their status in your post. You have to put that in. And then amendments, and what that really means is how do you amend your post? You've got your constitution and bylaws. You have to spell it out so that not only do your members know, but so the state of Utah knows if you are going to amend your constitution and what process do you have to go through to do that. So, and there's other things that you might want to put in your constitution that's unique to your post, as long as it kind of fits into the who we are, what do we do, and why. That's fine. There's really, once you get the main things that the law requires, then don't worry about other things that you might want to put in your constitution that's unique to your post. Okay, bylaws. Again, in your bylaws, say again who you are, what your name is, what the name of the post is. You have to talk about the management of your organization. How are you going to be managed? Who's going to do that? Is it going to be a post executive committee? How many? Do they all have a vote? Are some of them appointed? Are some of them elected? For your management committee, you should certainly have at least 3 officers, your commander, first and second vice, as elected. Our post, we elect not only our officers, but also our post executive committee members. We elect all of them. But it's up to you. How do you want to run your post? If we have a full body. I mean, we have our 3 officers, plus we have 9 post executive committee members. I helped to post in our district, write their constitution. They wanted three managers, 3 people that were in management, and they really didn't have a post executive committee. I suggested to them that they probably should at least get 4 if they could, 5 better, post executive committee went on top of their elected officers. But it's what can your post do? What are your members willing to commit to? But you've got to spell out what your management plan is, and you have to spell out, if you have a post executive committee, what are their duties, responsibilities? What are the duties of all of your officers? It's for those of you who are on the DEC, every year the Department Judge Advocate has to give out and get signed officers' duties. So if you're a District 2 commander, you're going to get something that you've got to sign that said these are your duties of office. If you're a adjutant, or if you're a financial officer, if you're a judge advocate, if you're the chaplain, you're going to get a job description that says these are the things that you have to do. Now, those usually are pretty long, so you don't have to do that in your bylaws, but you have to spell out what you expect of your officers. What do you expect them to be able to do? What can they do, and what can they not do? The delegates, the Department Constitution sets forth the requirement for delegates when we have convention, and how those delegates are to be elected, and how many we can have, and so in delegates, the only thing I think we do in our constitution is just say that the post will elect delegates for the convention as set forth in the Department Constitution, and that's the only time and only place that we use delegates. Appointments, again, you got to talk about the responsibility of the commander. Is the commander going to make all the appointments to the committees? Are you going to let the commander appoint a chair to the committee and let that chair make appointments to anyone else they want on that committee? Just spell it out, whatever you think fits your post to get the job done. It's the how. Same with resolutions. There's a policy. There's in the department, in the national constitution, and in our department constitution, talks about resolutions and how they must occur, what has to be done to get them to the final stage of voting on them. If it's just a resolution that's going to be presented just to your post, that's something unique and specific to something that you're trying to do to your post, just explain how that has to happen. What kind of notice has to be given. If it's something that you want to start at your post and carry it to the department to try to get something changed in department, you have to, it's best thing you can do is just say, do the resolution consistent with the requirements set forth in the department constitution, because they're there. Meetings, when are you going to meet? How often are you going to meet? Where are you going to meet? As much information as you can give, put it in there. You know, if you don't want to get real specific and say we're going to meet the third Tuesday of every month, then just say meetings will be held at a certain location each month. I personally don't like that, but you know, if you have a smaller post and you can contact everybody and say, okay, we're going to have this month's meeting is going to be the second Tuesday. But you've got to spell out, you've got to first of all indicate that you're having meetings, and you've got to give them as much information as you can about when those meetings are going to be. Notice this. I've told you earlier, if you're going to change your constitution and bylaws, amended in any way, you've got to give notice. And normally it's 30 days notice. Sometimes it could be 60 days notice, but you've got to give sufficient notice, not only of the time that you may take some action on this issue, but also what it is. What are you doing? So you got to tell them, we're trying to make some changes here, and this is the changes we're trying to make, and we're giving you notice of that. If you would like to be heard, we're going to have this on our agenda at our meeting on such and such a date. So you got to give proper notice. Rules of order, again, that's Robert's rules, and you just don't let the Robert's rules ruin a good, productive meeting. Limitations of liabilities, as far as posts are concerned, every officer, including your post executive committee, should be covered by directors and officers liability insurance. And then finally, amendments. Like, if you're going to amend your constitution or bylaws, you have to give proper notice. You have to give time for the members to respond, and it takes 2/3 votes to do that. Okay. So now you've got your constitution, you got your bylaws. Now what are you going to do? Well, if you have current bylaws, you can't start under the new rules until they actually become effective. So just follow whatever you've got in your bylaws and notify your members that you're trying to amend it, you're trying to change it, and if they agree and vote on it, then you start following what is set forth in your new constitution and bylaws. We didn't when we 2 years ago amended and changed our constitution and bylaws, and we sent our notice out. We didn't do 3 readings. I know this may be good, but we didn't do 3 readings. We just sent it out. We spelled out exactly what we were trying to change, the different sections that we were changing, and what the changes were and why. And we set the date. I think we set it about 45 days down the road. We explained the why, and we didn't get any comments from anybody. I wasn't surprised. But on that date, when it was on calendar, the members that were there voted unanimously to make the changes. So we didn't do 3 readings. Maybe that's a good thing, but it's not the law. It's not required, but it's probably a good thing to do. And so we held our vote. We actually had in the previous constitution that it takes 2/3 majority, but we put 2/3 members then present at the meeting, and so all all of our members knew that was our requirement. 2/3 after we gave notice to all of our members this was going to happen, then 2/3 vote of the members present at the meeting were sufficient. We did it unanimously, but it was 2/3. It wasn't just 2/3 of the whole membership. It was 2/3 of the members then present, because we had given notice to our members, told them that's what we were going to do, and that actually was in the previous Constitution and bylaws. Make sure if you make any changes and you vote on it, make sure that vote is recorded in your minutes. Somebody could come back 10 years down the road and say, wait, I've got a copy of the Constitution that you had 15 years ago. How did you do this? That, you did it improperly. So make sure that the vote is recorded in the minutes, so that that doesn't come up and, down the road and bite you in the butt. Under our department constitution, once you get your constitution done, ours, I think it even says if you wish, send those to the department judge advocate so that I can take a look at them. And usually I kind of, for the ones that I've been involved in, I've helped them write them anyway. So I didn't anticipate any changes, but send them to the judge advocate, whoever that is, and have them take a look at them, see if they believe they conform to the department constitution and the national constitution and there's no conflict. And if the judge advocate then reviews it and approves it, then you get your people to vote on it, pass it, and then send a copy of it to our department adjutant to keep on file there. Okay. We talked a little bit about standing rules. And I mean, I know I said earlier that this is a good place to put all your rules if you have a bar, and it is. It's where they should go. But I know this document says this is where you put your specific stuff. Our meeting's on the third Wednesday at 7 p.m. That's fine. If you want to put it in your standing rules so that it's not a specific thing in your constitution and bylaws, that's fine. If just remember, if you do put it in your bylaws, specifically put it in your bylaws, be sure you put in there that these dates can be changed by vote of the PEC with proper notice to members. So, and then it doesn't matter where it is. We're going to nominate officers in March, elect them in April, install them in May. That's exactly what we do, but we have that actually in our bylaws. If you don't want to do that, if you want to put it in your standing rules so you can change it just by the vote of the PEC, that's fine. We're not going to hold a meeting in December, same thing. If you want to put it in your standing rules, that's fine. I think that if you make changes and the PEC makes changes, you still have to give notice. I believe you have to give notice to your members that you're going to make a change. So, because they can be, your standing rules can be amended by a majority vote of the PEC, not the general membership, just the majority vote of the PEC. So it's kind of up to you what what do you think your post will tolerate in terms of wanting to know more, or is the non-specificity in your bylaws okay? It's either way, there's not a right or wrong here. Either way, it's just a matter of preference. We talked a little bit about customs. We've always done it this way. Well, yeah, that is. I mean, I told you our experience with the lady that's in the auxiliary, who you all know, and she's wonderful, but she's rigid. Boy, if it's not done the way it was always done, she's going to let us know about it. So, but customs should not be your rule. You should not run your post by customs. You should run your post by what's written in your articles of incorporation, if you incorporate in your constitution and bylaws. So, and if you let your post be run by custom, you're gonna have a battle just about every time you hold a meeting.
So, Barb, Barb,
Yep.
can you hear me?
Yep.
We have several questions. Would this be a good time to do that?
Sure. Let's do it.
Okay, so Jimmy Jones has three questions. The first one is, why would we want to incorporate? He also asked, is a PEC required? And actually has four questions. Are Constitution and bylaws required to operate a post? And is the standing rules a separate document? So let's start with the first one, which is, why would we want to incorporate as a post?
Okay, if you're a post, if you are not incorporated, you're not protected at all. If something happens, leaving your post, maybe you have an event there, and maybe a little alcohol is served, and somebody leaves your post and they get in an accident and hurt themselves, and God forbid, hurt somebody else. Every officer in that post, and it could be every member of that post, is liable and can be sued, individually sued. If you incorporate, you're protected. I mean, the only way you can be sued as an officer or a member of that post is if you do something illegal, if you do something that's grossly negligent, or if you do something that's intentionally in violation of your own rules. So that's probably the main reason to get incorporated for a post. But if you want to buy items for your post and you want to take advantage of the no sales tax, you in Utah you can't do that unless you're incorporated. So incorporation is more than anything else. Incorporation is a protective device for liability.
And I'm going to just follow up with that in that question, Barb, which is, maybe you could explain the difference between, I mean, people understand what insurance is, but the difference between why they'd want to be incorporated versus thinking insurance is just going to take care of liability versus incorporation. Do you see what I'm saying? So why can't they just have insurance and not be incorporated? You see what I'm saying?
So you want to buy insurance for everybody, every member of your association? I
Yeah.
mean, that's
Yeah.
it. You want to
Yeah.
buy insurance for every member of your organization?
Right.
Because they're all subject to being sued.
Right. So I just want to make sure that that's clear to everybody based on
Right.
that question. The other question that Jimmy had is a PEC required?
You can set up your management any way you want to set up your management. One of our posts in District 2 just they don't really list it as a PEC. They just have their commander, their first vice, their adjutant, their chaplain, their financial officer, and I think a historian, if I'm not mistaken. And they're all elected and they're all officers, and that's their management. So they don't really have, and then they spell out, how what the commander can do and can't do, and what the vote that has to be taken to approve things, but they don't list it as a PEC. So you can set up your management structure whatever way you want to set it up. You don't have to call it a PEC.
Okay. Next question he had, are Constitution and bylaws
Can we go
required?
back?
Are they required to operate a post?
Constitution and bylaws,
Are they required to operate a post?
I would say yes, and I know right now probably over 50% of the posts in the state of Utah do not have Constitution and bylaws. So I just think you're just leaving yourself wide open to lawsuits if something happens. I mean, even if if you don't want to incorporate, I mean, if you don't have Constitution and bylaws that so that there's some structure, so that if you do get sued and they say, well, you were negligent, you didn't act properly. If you can show that you were acting consistent with what's in your Constitution and bylaws, you at least have a defense. But if you don't have something, then you're just leaving yourself really wide open to to lawsuits. So
Okay, and the follow-up to that question also is the standing rules a separate document from the C&B?
well, separate document in the sense that it's given a name. It's called standing rules. It's attached to, well, like the Department Constitution. It's attached to our Department Constitution. We have our Constitution, bylaws, and then standing rules. So I don't know what exactly the question is, if it's an individual separate document. It's separate in the sense that it has its own title and it has its own things set forth in it, but it's part of your overall governing documents. I would say it's got to be part of your governing documents.
Okay, next questions are, and these were just ones I wanted to put out there so that everybody could hear, which is if there's generic sample templates that can be shared with posts and districts to use as a guide, including if they're going to having to amend their constitution and bylaws. So I believe, I think I've had this conversation with you before, Barb, about that there is at least a template to help posts and districts get started, or if they need to amend them. There's
Yes, I have,
templates.
I have probably, well, they're actually full documents. They're full. They're from some post that
Yeah.
has done their constitution and bylaws. And I don't think I've seen any documents that had standing rules in them, but there may be out there. I don't know. I haven't seen them. But I mean, that's what, when people contact me and I discuss them, discuss their constitution and bylaws, I send them one or two or three of those, the ones that come from other posts, and I tell them to write theirs up, and then let me, with them, they'll send me a copy and we'll look at it, and we go back and forth with trying to, make it
Okay,
right. So
great.
yes, we have that. But let me just jump in a minute and talk about districts.
Mm-hmm.
It really is not advantageous. In fact, could be very detrimental to the district to be incorporated. And I know Sheila just went through this, and she disincorporated her district. If let me see if I can explain this and make sense. But if all our districts are chartered since 2012, when the national constitution was amended to add the word and create and charter, they added that word. And so Utah has made the determination and decision rightly to charter all of our districts. So every district in this post, now posts are chartered also, but the national constitution and our department constitution gives a lot more autonomy to posts, which makes it more sensical for them to be incorporated. So, or at least have their constitution and bylaws. But our districts are literally what they say they are. They're just sort of some entity that exists between the department and the post.
Hmm.
They don't have post. They don't have a district home. They don't have the same reason to do the who, what, when, where, and how that posts have. So they're chartered, and under that charter, in terms of protecting their officers can be protected under the liability, the D&O liability of the department, because they are also our department commanders, district commanders are part of the DEC. So they should already be covered under the directors and officers liability. So they're protected. Our districts don't have ancillary or auxiliary organizations. They don't have baseball teams. They don't have, the auxiliary specific to a district. They don't. So if they're chartered and incorporated, one of the things they've got to do is satisfy as a subsidiary corporation. That's what they're considered, a subsidiary corporation of the department. Then in order to be in in within the law, within the U.S. trademark law, and which they've got to do before they can even use the emblem of the American Legion. They've got to be in conformance with the U.S. trademark law. So that includes, there's 5 things that they have to do to be in conformity with the trademark law. Think about this. You're a district. You're chartered, but you're incorporated. All of your officers, directors, trustees must be named by the department. Now, we don't do that with any of our districts. They're named by, our district officers are named by all the posts within the district. They're not named by our department, so they're automatically in violation of the trademark law, which means they can't use the American Legion emblem for anything. So they have to, any vacancy of any officer in the corporation has to be filled by the department. That's not what we do. The subsidiary corporation must report to the department no less frequently than monthly and give a financial report. We don't do that. The department treasurer or finance officer has to be a signatory on all accounts of a district corporation. All amendments to the articles of incorporation or bylaws must be approved by the department. We don't do that. So if you are incorporated as a district and you're in violation of any of those 5 rules, not only do you not have the authority and the right to use the American Legion emblem, but you could lose your nonprofit status, and you could make the department lose its nonprofit status because the department's not enforcing these rules against its districts that it has chartered. So it's in my opinion, districts should not be chartered, but if they are, they have to be in compliance with all of those 5 rules that I just went over with you, and we aren't. I mean, we don't enforce that in our districts, so it could put the department in a catch-22 situation with tax laws. So in terms of districts, if you're chartered but not incorporated, there's still things you have to do. You have to have your own EIN number. You have to file your 990 with the IRS, but you can file it through department instead of doing your own individual filing. Now, I know Rick's doesn't want that to happen, so it doesn't have to happen, but you still have to do that. You're not, you can't just hide. You still have to have your own EIN number, and you still have to file your 990. So, but the catch and the scary thing is, if any district is not in compliance with any of those 5 rules, it could create havoc for not only them but also for the department. So I digress to districts.
That's okay. That's okay. That's important information. I'm going to try to move through this quickly. We just have a few more minutes, Barb, and I know with the CMBs, it's a very full topic because there's a lot of questions, but I just encourage people to make sure that you touch bases with Barb with specific questions that you have as you move forward to either amending your bylaws or getting in a new set of bylaws, constitution of bylaws, just because they're so important. They serve as the governance of your posts and districts. Does the department have a guide if posts need to incorporate, as far as making sure that they're following what state law requires? Is there something
Ask that question again, please.
Is there something that the department has to serve as a guide if they're going to incorporate, to make sure they follow what they need to in order to incorporate as a post?
Yes, I just dropped 2 documents out in the chat.
Okay.
And I will bring a copy of the one which is basically the state requirements for incorporation.
Yeah.
And I will bring that to the DEC meeting along with a copy of this presentation, Marty, as you asked. And I will have that available to for people that want to pick that up and take it with them. But I'm also going to be putting this out on that document, and Barb was kind enough to also share the Post 9 incorporation document. I will put both of those out on the website when I get Steve Zabisky to put this presentation out in the training section of utlegion.org as well. So that's the long answer to your question.
Okay, just a few more questions. We'll make this really brief. How do posts make sure they align with national department, et cetera, when it comes to CMPs? Sometimes as area commanders in particular, we get the question of, well, if this is what it is for national or this is what it is for department, how do we know we're complying with what we need to at a post level? What's your answer to that, Barb?
You mean in your documents, in the written document, does it line up and conform?
Yeah.
That's why you send it to the judge advocate. Send it to the judge advocate. Let the judge advocate take a look at it. You know, when I get it, I lay it down and I put the department on one side and the post on one side and the national over here, and I just line it up, make sure that there's no language in the post that would contradict or be counter to what's in the department and the national.
Perfect.
It's not hard to do.
Okay, just a few more questions. One is from John. How much money can be on hand before it's a red flag for taxes, etc.?
Well, I think the 990 that you have to file depends on what you have, and I think one of the lowest numbers that triggers a different 990 is 15,000, and then I think the other one was 50,000. You know, that's a question I don't really have a specific answer to.
50,000, right? 50,000.
I was going to say it's 50,000.
50,000.
If it's less than 50,000, you get to fill out the postcard. If it is less than 200,000, you get to fill out the short form 990. And if it goes over 200,000, you have to do the long form 990.
Yep. Okay. And then Marty, your question's been addressed, I believe, from Barb. And then the last, let's see, Doug had a question, clarification on state sales tax. Typical post is a 501c19. My understanding is that only a C3 can avoid state sales tax, question mark.
As it is today. And we are trying to get that changed. In fact, what's his name? Shelley? He's an assemblyman from down south somewhere. John Johnson, do I have that right? He contacted me and said that he's been in contact with his assemblyman. Try to get this changed because he has been fighting like crazy to try to get that done. And I contacted Terry and gave Terry the information that I have. I know that Terry met with our legislative representative yesterday or today, and so and Rick did a lot of research on it with his little AI tool that he has. He's so proud of, and gave us some more information. So believe me, I mean, I have fought this with the people at the Department of Corporations, but they don't. You know, well, it's just not written. If it's not written down, I can't do it. So we're going to try to get it written down that 501c19 is. And I don't know what to do in the interim because we are not 501c3. You can be, I guess, you can. I don't think you can have two statuses though. You're either a 501c3 or you're a 501c19. And by congressional edict, we're 501c19.
May I comment? May I comment?
Yes.
Sure.
Doug is right. The 519, we should be covered with the 501c3 19. However, if you're working with banks, in 1984 was the problem is when we had to get in articles of incorporation. The purpose of that is in their policies, they will only give to 501c3s, and they would not accept the 19. So that's why we've had a 501c3 because the banks will only give us like Boise State donations because we're a
501c3.
Because we're a 501c3.
Yeah.
It's based upon the policy of the organizations, the donors. They did that because so many people were going and asking for donations of $200 or $300 at a time, and it was bankrupting them and driving them. So they put into their policies that it had to be of a 501c3. That's why we in Provo have a 501c3 and have had one since 1959.
Thank you, Randy. One last question, and then we're going to sign off here. We're 5 minutes over, but I hope everybody doesn't mind because there's some really important conversation going on here. The last question is from Greg Mortensen. If a post wants to amend the standing rules document, would that go through the same process as the CMB? Notification of members, 2/3 vote, etc., or is it a simple majority vote of members?
Depends on what you wrote when you wrote your constitution and bylaws, but your standing rules should only require vote of your PEC or your officers, PEC, whatever your management setup is. And then, I mean, you don't have to go to the full membership to amend your standing rules as long as you give notice and tell them that's what you're going to do. Then you could, the vote of your PEC or whatever your management setup is sufficient.
Great.
It takes 2/3 vote of that, whatever that is, your PEC or your management team. But no, you don't have to go to full membership for a vote. That's why a lot of people like to put so much in the standing rules because they're easier to do.
Judge, can I make one more comment too? When we do our 501c3s, you have to make sure that you register that 501c3 with the department, and then department needs to send that to national. If national doesn't recognize it, your 501c3 won't be good for the American Legion either.
Very good.
Wow.
Okay. Very full training session this evening. Barb, I'd like to thank you for taking this time this evening to do this. I hopefully for everybody who's on the call this evening that this has been really helpful. We know that with post and district bylaws and constitutions that this information can feel and sometimes is convoluted, but our department judge advocate is here and has been here for quite a long time and has a lot of knowledge about how to manage and get this taken care of at the post and district level and the department level, because we just had that one passed in June. So I really encourage you to contact her with questions that you have. Barb, do you prefer phone calls first or emails, or what's your preference?
Text, email, either one, phone
Either
call.
one. Okay.
If it's a phone call, it needs to be my cell phone though, because
Okay.
all I get on my house phone is spam. So I usually don't answer my house phone.
Does anybody need Barb's number? Y'all have it? So this has
If
been
not,
so
you can send
helpful.
her an email and she'll give it to you.
Yeah.
That's right.
And if you don't have her email, then she'll let her know. Anyway, well, thank you so much tonight, and we'll look forward to having this information up on the website. Our adjutant gets that up under the training and news. If you have not been on that tab within the website, make sure you scroll down and you'll see information as soon as Stephen gets that transferred. Is there transcripts on there, or is it just strictly the actual video that we're in right now?
What I've got a YouTube channel that's just set up now. I've got to get that posted, and then I still have to get all our training for this year over to Steve Sabisky to get that posted. I've been putting the presentations out there, and so eventually we're going to have the video up there, and I will have all of that done before the end of December.
Yeah, perfect. So just make sure you take a peek there. We're really trying to be really transparent and communicate as best as we can to as many post members, district members, and department, just so that we can really help people have the information that they need to so they can be successful in their posts and districts. So with that said, we will look forward to seeing everybody next month for our next training. And if you are not receiving the Blue Hatter, make sure you get a hold of Rick so that you're on his email list so that you're receiving that. The Blue Hatter, for those that don't know, is the department newsletter. It always includes the training sessions. There's a wealth of information in our department newsletter, and it's put out
Mhm.
every other month. So the next
And it is on the website, utlegion.org as well.
Yes, and it's on utlegion.org, again, under training news tab. So if you have not been on the website, you can download it. It's a healthy document, I'll warn you, but you can also choose which pages you want to download or print if you're sharing them with your posts and districts. As your training chair, hopefully this was helpful for you, and we'll see you in January. In the meantime, have the best holiday season, and thank you for being on here tonight, taking time to learn more. We really appreciate it.
See you Saturday at the DEC if we don't get snowed in with a blizzard.
Yes.